space, but I don't think that's what the founders envisioned. As an evangelical, I don't believe that. I think what they envisioned was a plurality of worldviews existing in the same space. That's pretty advanced citizenship, but I think that's what they envisioned, and I think to a large extent for the last nearly 240 years we've managed to pull it off. Let me ask you guys one other thing. We're getting close, and I do want to honor the time tonight. But Asma, you point out in your book the idea that just going back to this idea, Islam isn't a religion, it's a dangerous political philosophy. So in other words, it's this Trojan horse that's kind of come into our country, which I think we've already kind of cleared the air. That's not really true. Muslims have been with us. They fought in the revolution. They've been with us since the beginning. But that it's a political philosophy disguised as a religion. And you gave actually in the book several examples of right-wing expression of that. So let me ask you, is this exclusive to the right wing, or are there some left-wing versions of this idea? And even I would say to Suhail, are there examples not just of the right, because I know a lot of what we've talked about tonight comes from the right, of people on the political left that would really use the Muslim community rather than protect them? Can you guys speak to that a little bit about what you've experienced?
Sure. If I could start, I mean, this kind of ties for me into that question that you just asked about the coexistence of secularism and religion. Because it was interesting because my former colleague, Luke Goodrich from the Becket Fund, he came out with a book just a couple months after mine came out. It's called Free to Believe. Actually, I have a copy right here. You guys are interested in checking it out. It's actually written for an evangelical audience. And he's got this line in there that I thought was really interesting. And it was interesting because I was reviewing his chapters when we were writing it, and he was reviewing mine. And he said, this idea, he actually addresses this idea of Islam, this claim, Islam is not a religion. And he's like, he gets all these different reasons for why it's a horrible idea for any Christian to go along with that and to support that idea. But he said, one of the reasons being that in our current context, our current sort of political context, he said Christianity is more likely to be deemed a dangerous political ideology much more quickly than Islam is, which is really interesting. Like that is very much the sort of the perception and the fear that a lot of traditional or conservative Christians are feeling right now. And so this again sort of ties back to this idea of can religion and secularism sort of coexist. I think it depends partly on how you're defining secularism. But for me, religious freedom isn't even this idea of not just the idea of people being able to express their religious beliefs and their, engage in their religious practices, which people think of in a very narrow sense. But for me, it's more so the ability to say what we believe. Right. And that for a lot of people, and not just Christians, but I think mostly Christians, they're really kind of feeling it as the more dominant religious group in this country. They're feeling that, hey, it's actually becoming almost criminal to say what we believe, that we're going to be labeled as hateful, as anti-woman, as anti-minority, as bigots. And so when I defend religious freedom, I actually absolutely come from it from this perspective of like, there's like this bigger idea here, the ability just to be able to speak. And to share our ideas openly. So in terms of, concerns by the left, I think in some ways it kind of mirrors what I just said, that Christians fear. And what I trace in the book is, and it's important, as you noted, Pastor Joel, that it's not just that I'm looking at the right. Yes, a lot of it is looking at the right because the attacks are so black and white. But there's also problems on the left that are much more subtle that I thought it was really important to bring out. And I'm like, even among those who champion Muslims' rights, they do it on very particular terms, right? It's almost like Islam is like this, ethnic or racial, grouping. And we're going to defend Muslims as racial minorities or ethnic minorities, as opposed to people who have a robust religious set of beliefs, oftentimes, very much in line with the types of conservative Christian beliefs that many people on the left have problems with.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. I've as you mentioned in the introduction, Pastor, I've been a senior fellow at an evangelical Christian think tank. That's how we met for over 13, 14 years, where I spent a majority of my time defending the rights of Christians, primarily around the globe, including in Muslim majority countries. And that's informed by my background as a proud practicing Muslim. because I feel that, again, all rights need to be defended regardless of religious background. And there's no doubt that a lot of times those rights of religious practice, whether they be they be infringed by communists or by secularists, they oftentimes come sometimes from left-leaning governments, because they see religion as a problem, regardless of the religion. They might be going after Christians today, Muslims tomorrow, but in general, they see religion as a threat. And because of their ardent and sometimes militant secularism, they really, again, as Asma articulated, sometimes might see, well, we can protect these Muslims right now because they're a small minority. But the moment they try to inform the public debate with their viewpoints, which might be informed or grounded in their Islamic tradition, then they have crossed the line, because now they're bringing religious practice and belief into the public arena, which, again, I think our framers have guaranteed that we have the ability to express in the public arena. So that's why I think it's so important, going back to the title, particularly as we close, that Muslims, Christians, friends of the Jewish community, or people of other faiths in the country, or no faith at all, that we bring our religious viewpoints to the public arena, engage in honest public debate. And, you know, for me personally, as a Muslim American, I'm often informed by my Christian and Jewish brothers and sisters. You know, I often will look to John 4 to say, hey, when Jesus met with the Samaritan woman at the well in front of the disciples, here was a Samaritan woman who had been leading a sinful life, but he still treated her with respect. So as a Muslim, why can't I treat my Jewish, Christian, or Muslim or other faith follower, neighbor, or friend with the same respect? It goes to Matthew 5:9. I want to be somebody who is a peacemaker, because that's who God has blessed. And there are so many directions, whether it's the Jewish, Christian, or the Muslim faith, to be somebody who does enjoin peace, who enjoins friendship. And we can talk about our differences, and we can even compete in doing good things. But isn't that the best way to do it? To compete in doing good things, so that, just as you said, Pastor, we can compete to get God's salvation. We may not agree how to get there, but let's do good things in addressing the opioid epidemic, addressing homelessness, trying to find a cure for the coronavirus, or whatever it might be, to get into heaven. But let's do it as Americans, united together in one belief that we should all practice our religion freely and openly in an open and free society.
Yeah, thanks, Sue.